I get that I'm predicting unprecedented things, but I'm doing that based on what I'm actually seeing on the ground.
Listen, my best assessment in having reviewed all of the evidence and in talking to you here is I think it's clear you're not doing a Dave Rubin. I think your heart's in the right place. I think retrospectively, here's my prediction. I'm not big on predictions. I think in a few years you'll say, I was a little naive with my expectations.
What's happening, everybody? Cenk Uygur recently joined David Pakman on his show, The David Pakman Show. Cenk Uygur and David Pakman discussed Cenk Uygur's recent appearances on right-wing shows and a Turning Point USA event with Charlie Kirk. Essentially, what you're going to see here is David Pakman passively aggressively insulting Cenk Uygur for committing the greatest sin of the left, speaking with conservatives. That said, let's watch more Democrat Party infighting between a giant douche, David Pakman, and a turd sandwich, Cenk Uygur. Let's go.
It's great to welcome back to the show Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks, author of the book Justice is Coming. Cenk, I'm so glad to have an opportunity to just have you on and to talk directly with you. You know, last time we had you on, you were on with Destiny, and we talked about some of the things we're going to talk about today, but I just want to talk to you directly. I want to first just kind of explain my understanding of the controversy that's surrounding you. And if I get anything wrong, you tell me. This all kind of started with some tweets involving Don Jr. and Elon Musk. We talked about it, where you expressed willingness to work with whoever if you can accomplish the things that you believe are worth accomplishing. We talked a little bit about whether it's realistic or naive to think these people will help us do that, but that was sort of like part one. You appeared with Charlie Kirk at America Fest with Turning Point USA. We'll talk about the content of that, but you've also been criticized by some just for appearing there, like just that your presence there was the problem rather than your goals or being there. People are talking about a political 180 like Dave Rubin, which you've explained is not at all what this is. And then I've also seen in preparing for our talk today some conversations you had with folks that I think you were previously well acquainted and friendly with that are seeming way less friendly right now for reasons we can talk about. And a lot of people that say they are on the left don't like what you're up to. Is that a fair assessment of kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details, and that's why we're having this conversation. But as a summary of where people think it stands, yeah, I think that's relatively right.
Here's my view after, knowing you for, I think 16 or years or something like that at this point, reviewing the appearance, reviewing everything you've said. I don't think there's any problem with going on right-wing shows or appearing at America Fest in principle. I think we should try to talk to the other side. My goal would be try to poach their audiences, try to expose Trump's not really the populist he claims to be or whatever. I think there's no issue there whatsoever. If I were to just jump to my concern, it would be all the evidence to me points to these are obviously not good partners in the things we want to achieve. I'll give you an example. Of course, I want to cut military spending, Pentagon. You and I have talked about it. Why wouldn't we work with whoever wants to do that? At the same time, no matter what shows up on Twitter, it's hard to imagine that Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, Huckabee, and Mike Waltz are ever going to be involved in actually doing that. And so for me,
Hey, if you like watching videos like this, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
it's more about how realistic is this thing? And is there a risk that your presence through no fault of your own is used simply to degrade the left with no real shot at improving anything? That's where I would place my concern, bearing in mind that I agree with a lot of what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah. So let me start by acknowledging that I get why people are concerned. Like when you see a pattern, and we've seen Dave Rubin do it and others, Tulsi Gabbard do it, etc.
Yep.
And you see what appears to be the first step there, that your mind goes to the second, the third, and the 18th step. And so, like, if you're on the left and you're just see us doing this peripherally, or you hear it on a different show and they showed you a 15-second clip or something, I get why you'd be concerned. right?
Yep.
Now, I've been as clear as anyone can possibly be that that is not the path we're taking. And I kind of tore Dave Rubin's head off when Pierce Morgan suggested that we make up. I've got no interest in that. And if you and what's hilarious is people tune in to the Young Turks live at 6 o'clock Eastern every day, and they go, "Wait, I don't get it. Where's the right wing turn?" They're saying things that are like super progressive, populist, left wing. What the hell are these guys talking about, right? So like I would ask you to not believe people with different incentives. What's really interesting, David, is that when I go on right wing shows and other comments, tons of comments that I get is, wait a minute, I think right wing media lied to me. That's right wingers saying it because they say, I just saw like 15-second clip of you saying something outrageous or something that I totally disagree with that they view to be outrageous, right? But when I see you in a conversation, the left is not at all what I thought it was, right? Because the right wing shows have historically have framed the left as the most extreme. That everyone on the left thinks that, fill in the blank, that we should release all the prisoners and not, do anything about crime and whatever thing you could imagine that's the most extreme thing on the left. Almost all the right wing previously believed that was the entirety of the left. Everyone who voted for Biden, Kamala Harris, etc. So when they see us doing this, they're like, "Oh wow!" And that's ironically now the left wing shows are doing the same thing as the right wing shows did. Show 15-second clip and go, "You see a slight disagreement there. Oh, that's it. He's a Nazi. He's fascist, etc."
Did you hear that? When Cenk is going on right wing shows, people are conservatives are saying to him, "Wow, I think the right wing media lied to me." No one said that to him. Maybe he had a conversation with someone and that's what he heard. I'm talking maybe one conversation, but that's not true. I don't understand David Pakman most of the time, but here's another example. I don't understand why he assumes that Trump's appointees wouldn't cut Pentagon spending when some folks in Trump's administration have acknowledged, yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing not to cut their spending unnecessarily, but just to cut out all the waste. We know how many, whatever it was, billions of dollars that they can't account for. That's a problem. They just need to be audited. And there's a lot you can cut from that. So I don't understand how David can say that. Of course, he didn't give any reason as to why. I can definitively say, however, who wouldn't cut Pentagon spending, and that's the new party of war, the Democrats, or rhinos, or never-Trumpers. So I think you got a much better chance with Trump's administration than anyone that you're aligned with. I'll get back to the video. I don't know if you've noticed yet at this point in the interview, doesn't Cenk just look defeated? He's lost his fire. I'm kind of getting sad watching this. It's like he's thinking, nobody wants me. Never in my life did I think I'd feel sorry for Cenk Uygur. I don't know if I do now, but I'm closer than I've ever been, at least. And Cenk, I'm sure you're not watching this. Wouldn't listen to me if you were, but I'd like to offer some unsolicited advice. I would think after 16 years of knowing David Pakman, you would understand this, but David Pakman is not your friend. For the last two parts of this video, I'm skipping ahead to the most relevant portions of this conversation. So let's get back to the video.
Like, there's so many things that you asked. I know I'm taking a while, but I do want to address the other things because the idea that you're helping them or legitimizing them is absurd.
Okay. There's sort of like a 3-part thing that I think will build to the most important aspect of what you just said. So first of all, I think you are doing an awesome job at correctly identifying something that's a major problem for the left and that explains a lot of the right's success, which is they aren't doing, at least right now, these toxic purity tests the way that some on the left do. You've identified the right. If you agree with them on 5% and you're kind of sick of the other options, they welcome you, even if you disagree on 95% of stuff. A lot of the opposite of that is happening on the left. I think that's spot on, and I think it's awesome that you've identified that.
Holy, David Pakman actually got something right. I guess a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. Yeah. And he actually, I really like the way he described it, a toxic purity test. The right wing is welcoming. The left wing forces you to agree with everything they believe. I can't believe he acknowledged it. What I can believe is that it took him and Cenk this long to figure it out when, I'd say 99% of the people watching this have understood that for a long time.
See, I get that I'm predicting unprecedented things, but I'm doing that based on what I'm actually seeing on the ground.
Listen, my best assessment in having reviewed all of the evidence and in talking to you here is I think it's clear you're not doing a Dave Rubin. I think your heart's in the right place. I think retrospectively, here's my prediction. I'm not big on predictions. I think in a few years you'll say, I was a little naive with my expectations. And I could be wrong, you could be wrong, we don't know. I think if there's a fault here, it's we've seen you're right, it's been a long time. And for 8, 9 years, almost 10 years now, since Trump came down the escalator and said Mexicans are rapists, the highest value has been they ultimately do support whatever Trump wants. They don't really care about free speech or freedom or family values or money in politics. That's what we've seen for the last 9.5 years. I hear you saying it's going to change, but we are on the same page that it hasn't been that way, right? I think that part we do agree on.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could list you dozens of examples.
I guess his audience just buys the crap that Pakman says when Trump came down the escalator and said all Mexicans are rapists. You're still going with that, huh? And then he suggested that the right wing doesn't care about freedom or family values. Got it. I had a really amazing opportunity years back to speak with a billionaire. I was in business school at the time, and I just wanted to talk to him about leadership. And, just got so many amazing insights and so grateful that he even took time to talk to me. But we got on the topic of trust. He's unquestionably the best business mind I've ever met in my life. Something that really stuck with me is when he said this: those who don't trust can't be trusted. That precisely encapsulates everything about David Pakman. That's why he always says, if I take you at your word, and then answers a question, and I hope we can have a good faith conversation, etc. The constant use of statements like these is evidence of his projection. It's not like he uses them once in a while, which wouldn't be that big of a deal. But if you're having a conversation with someone and they say, did you see the study that concluded that 50% of white Americans, whatever, blah, 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 the likelihood that that person made up a fake study just to get you is highly unlikely. And if they did, it would come out that they did make it up, and they'd be labeled as manipulative, not you. So what are you so worried about? This projection also comes out when he'll ask dumb questions or make stupid statements in response to a basic question, and he rarely, if ever, just gives an honest answer. He's so afraid to concede the most basic point in conversations because he assumes that if he does, they'll try to use it against him because that's what he does all the time. That's his motivation. Every question he asks is loaded. He's allergic to honesty. He doesn't think of or view other people like a normal person. His assumption is that other people are lying all the time, being manipulative with every point they make, or trying to corner him into a gotcha question. So what does all that projection equate to? He doesn't trust people. Those who don't trust can't be trusted. That's David Pakman. But what do you think of this conversation between dishonest Pakman and Cenk defeated Uygur? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like watching videos of David Pakman just lying all the time and being a genuine creep, then click on one of the 2 videos that just popped up on your screen. Otherwise, as always, I really, really appreciate you watching. The end.